Welcome to Inspired Learning, the Path of Exile podcast with Badger and Yoji. Badger is right here, and that is me, and Yoji is missing. Let me see if I can just get him up on the screen here for those watching live. And Yoji's kind of back there. How you doing, Yoji?
Hopefully good. If I'm here now, then I'm probably good. Yay!
Well, that's good. You are there. After that scuffed small little intro there where you weren't there, for those listening and not watching, Yoji was not on the screen, but now he is on the screen. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I think this intro was very telling of how all our preparation for the podcast kind of went. This is probably the most impromptu freestyle podcast we've done so far. Usually we are quite prepared, maybe have a guest, have decided on what we're talking about like more than a few hours before the podcast. You know, like the really good, like professional podcasting stuff.
Super professional.
This is not one of them.
It's not as much professional as the other ones or as organized, but we've got some things to talk about. We figured out what we're going to talk about. We were going back and thinking about like some stuff, right? We're going back and thinking about like what did we originally want this podcast to be? And not saying that that's changed, but when we first started talking about inspired learning, it was in the name, right? We want to be inspiring and help you guys learn about Path of Exile. And let's say we didn't find a guest in time, but I'm not going to tell you guys that. What we're going to say is we chose to not have a guest on this time because Yoji and I just wanted to talk to you guys about learning how to learn Path of Exile or learning how to learn ARPGs or mechanics in games, I guess, mostly, right?
Yep, that's kind of like what we originally intended the podcast to be mostly about. I think we had a few episodes that were about that, and we had a few episodes or quite a few episodes that were not really about that. And I don't think it's bad what we did so far. I think I'm pretty happy with where we went, kind of like the natural flow. But I also like the idea of going a bit to the original point and actually going educational on this one.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. I'm just adjusting your opacity here as well, because for some reason, some green started showing through. I don't know what happened to the chroma key there. There we go. Brilliant.
Apparently the episode played is outdated as well, says Soshiro.
The episode played is outdated? That didn't update either? Oh my goodness. Okay, so everything just decided to scuff itself this time around as well. But we're actually on episode 17, yeah.
Yeah, it is episode 13, so we're just like embracing it and going with the complete...
Wait, 13?
Thing. Yeah.
17.
I think it is 13.
No, well, yeah, I think your document said 13, but it's episode 17.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could also be the case. So apparently my document is also completely wrong. Maybe I typoed that one, and yeah. Okay, so it's one of the episodes.
I am loving this episode so far. This one's going up in the Hall of Fame, I think.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the best one. The completely scuffed. Is it RE17?
It is.
We're
17,
making a lot of podcasts. It's pretty crazy.
We are making a lot of podcasts.
We're pretty good at this.
It is 17. Yeah.
It is. Well, that's pretty cool. Go us.
It's pretty cool.
I thought we had only 13 podcasts, but yeah, cool.
It should. Hang on. Can we update it there now?
Yeah, Brilliant. 16 was a cave-in. I remember that. That was a really good episode, by the way.
That's true. I really enjoyed Octavian. Actually, let's start with that. Because we talked with Octavian about lots of different things. And we haven't really talked to each other since that point, have we? Because we've been, busy in lots of other ways.
Yep. Not
until
really.
Maybe yesterday we were like, oh yeah, we got a podcast. But what have you been up to, Yoji?
How's
life been?
Aside from a ton of IRL stuff happening and basically going from snow to 20 degrees Celsius in like 2 weeks, weather-wise. So today was like, I think 19, 20 degrees and like t-shirt weather. And when we did the last podcast, it was snowing and like -degrees, everything frozen over. So that's like the range of stuff I have experienced while doing that. There was BlizzCon thingy happening as well while we both were like busy. And yeah, I played a crap ton of PoE as well apparently, and kept going with these. I'm still playing the freaking what's called Necromancer cremation Archmage thing.
Yeah, how's
Almost
that
level
going?
98 now, and yeah, just pushing it.
Yeah, that's
It's fun.
I still have not ever got a build above level 97, and
Ha!
I've played
Got you
this. I've
beat.
played this game for like 8 years, 7 years, seven and a half years maybe. And yeah, no, I have too much. I don't know what it is. Probably just like I just want to make a new build. I want to make as many builds as I can. But yeah, that's a good job sticking with it. Um,
It's
yeah,
mostly like I can't decide on a new build. I got like a
yeah,
glorious vanity lying around. I got two Cosprees malices lying around for some reason.
two. Oh,
Yeah, I'm thinking about doing like some Inquiz cast on crit memes, but that needs a lot of other gear that I don't have. And then there's so
well,
much build options that I can't decide. I have a Shavs that I kind of could kind of six link and then try something with that. I have an Astral Projector lying around. I have a lot of items that you normally don't really expect to get in SSF. And now I'm
yeah,
like, okay, what do I play? I don't know. So I just
yeah.
I just keep playing the character that I have in my
Well,
undecided
yeah,
limbo
it's fair.
of build making failures.
Are you thinking about pushing it to 100?
I'm thinking about it, yeah. I'll definitely push
Yeah,
it to 98 because I'm like almost there. And then
yeah,
it's basically at that point. I could push it to 99. That would be one level higher than I ever loved before. 98 is usually my cutoff point.
yeah.
But then if you're 99, that's
If
kind
you're
of like a
99,
bad
yeah.
place. That's a bad place to stop. So I always figured if I ever go beyond 98 and towards 99, I would have to push 900, 100 on that, not just stop at 99. So yeah.
hmm Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe.
Yeah,
There's a lot of good XP this patch. Like you can do a
a
Valdo's Rest,
lot.
you can do
Yeah.
Alvar, Magic Monsters, Heist is good still. There's
Mm.
so much options. It's actually one of the most like variety you can have pushing to 100, I think. So I might maybe.
Yeah. I'm thinking of I think my eyes are bigger than my Path of Exile stomach at the moment, but I'm thinking of leveling to 100 in the BPL coming up. Subtle plug right there. No, I'll talk
Ooh.
about that at the end. But anyway,
Yeah.
my team has some pretty cool plans, and I'm thinking of being a full map clearer and leveler and that sort of thing. So we'll see. It probably won't happen because, as I said, I've not ever gotten higher than 96, and I'll probably get to that point and I'll be like, I'll either just help the team or do something else. Leveling's not my forte. We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I always like to kind of try and push a bit further than I have before. Like every time I leveled one level higher than I did before, and I did that from like 95, 96, 97 as kind of like a league goal. I either learned about something like how I play PoE, about how I enjoy PoE, or I kind of like found new ways to like push a character further. So whenever I've done that, and like in general, whenever I set like higher goals for a league than I've ever done before, like farming a headhunter, farming like whatever, you do also do this project of farming headhunters, farming mirrors, and maybe you have that as well, where you kind of like I don't know, like learn something new about like how you play PoE or how you approach things. Which at least for me,
Yeah.
that's usually been the case.
Definitely. Like, yeah, leveling, as I said, it's not something that I've learnt to do well in Path of Exile, but I think it kind of touches on. It was something that I kind of wanted to like talk about a little bit later, but it's a pretty important thing for how I go about learning things in games is being very selective about what I want to learn. And I think the best place for us to start with Path of Exile and talking about like how do you tackle a game like Path of Exile and how do you, invest your time, however much you have, whether you have like 1 hour a day, half hour a day, all the way up to like 8 hours a day or more or anything like that, is being selective and just trying to focus on, on one thing at a time and trying to get your head around that aspect of the game because Path of Exile is so large. You look at Path of Exile and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to go play this cool new game called Last Epoch that, is in beta, which, I played as well recently. It's pretty fun. But yeah, it's very true. Like every time that I decide to do a project or anything like that in Path of Exile, it usually comes for me from a place of learning. It's like as you said, hey, I want to grind up I want to grind up a headhunter or a mirror or something like that. It's my way of going like, I want to learn how to be better at this, so I'm just going to try it for myself. I'm going to set that goal and go towards it, learn things along the way.
Yep.
I guess that's a good place to start with Path of Exile and ARPGs in general. Is
Yeah. The
sort of
initial impression can be very overwhelming, as you said. But like, okay, where you basically see like you get to see new systems like every half hour or so, where you're like, okay, what's this new? Okay, what's this new system? And then it's really hard to like understand each of them and like take all that information in, while also understanding how they maybe interact. And yeah, it's easier to like either focus on one thing at a time, or at least like make like groups of things. Such as like maybe you focus on like a certain specific build archetype. You play like your first character, you're like, okay, I play melee, I only worry about melee stuff today, and like on this build, and then you just like try to understand like what goes into that, and then you go to the next thing, and then you're like, okay, my melee character kind of works, and then you just decide, okay, I want to make this build, I don't know, like deal a lot of damage, go crit, like let's see how crit works, and then you go into that. I think that kind of is a good approach. I think chopping it up into like a bit of more like piecemeal instead of like trying to gobble up the whole PoE at one huge bite.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I'm always trying to remember what it's like to start a game like this, start learning a game. And if I can just quickly talk about Last Epoch again, because I just started playing that 2 days ago. It's an ARPG, and so it borrows a lot from the genre. And I've played a lot of the genre, mostly in Path of Exile, right? So I picked up on a lot of the same kind of tropes and everything like that in that. But there was still that kind of sense of largeness in the scope of the game, and like, oh man, I've got a lot to learn here. I'm opening up their skill trees and everything like that for all the different skills. Of delving in further and everything like that. It was really cool to kind of at least take a small step back and kind of experience that learning process again. It was very much fast tracked. But what I want to ask to you, Yoji, and I guess we'll both talk about it, is do you remember your first experiences with Path of Exile or the ARP genre itself? Or, do you remember those kind of first moments of learning the game? If so.
I actually remember both. Yeah, my first ARPG was, I think, it's a game called Champions of Norath that came out for PlayStation 2. It's not like a very big or popular game, but it actually had a sequel as well. There were two games of that. It's like a basic, like, it's kind of like Diablo inspired, I would say. Like, in retrospect, I didn't really know much about Diablo back then. I was like somewhere in my teenage years or something like that when that came out, I think. We played PlayStation 2. We hacked and slashed monsters. You could like couch co-op that. That was pretty fun. And yeah, we just played the ever-loving crap out of that. It was pretty good. That's like the first loot-based ARPG I played. I mean, I guess you could count stuff like, some people would count Zelda to this. Some people would count like, I don't know, Secret of Mana, Terranigma, these games. I played that, but that was like the first loot-based one where you actually like grind gear. You have like rare items that you can craft and uniques and stuff. It was very much Diablo inspired. So that's like my first loot-based RPG. And we just went like winged it. We just went in, tried stuff out, saw what worked, played like that. We actually played to max level, which was pretty ridiculous on that game as well. Kind of like together, just like over the course of like vacations, like school vacations. But in PoE,
Yeah.
like PoE, I started out my first PoE experience was horrible. So I started out in hardcore, permanent,
Oh
because that
no.
was kind of like the thing what everyone did.
Yeah.
A friend of mine told me like Freeze Pulse CI is pretty good right now. So I played a witch, picked Freeze Pulse, started playing, and beeline to CI and died every single time.
No.
I did that, like, I numbered my characters, so they were called like, they had like German names, was basically like dying number 1, dying number 2, dying number 3, and then until I got to like number 6 or 7 or something like that, I decided, okay, maybe I just have to like change something up. So I tried like Freeze Pulse and did not go for CI initially, and that went way better. But it took me forever to get through the campaign. And then I also quit PoE. That's like on an account that I'm not currently playing. Like, that's not my current account because I lost the data on that. Then I stopped for like half a year or so and came back a bit before Nemesis. And that's when I like started playing a bit more before Nemesis. I tried like traps and stuff and like whatever, like just random builds, threw everything at a build. Then I found a Mjolnir, sold that for 40 Exalted Orbs back then.
Oh, back then that was yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then funded a lot of like build testing with that until I finally actually went into League which is Nemesis League, was my first actual league. And then I kind of get going from there. But I just like tried random stuff. I didn't really look much up. I watched like streams, but not to learn, just like for like, hey, what are these people doing? Ah, interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Did you like have maybe a more systematic approach? Because I just like played the game for shits and giggles and did not care at all about anything.
Not at all systematic. I can tell you it was probably as unsystematic or less than that for me. Well, like to kind of jump back as well, like my first ARPG experience, or I guess Diablo-esque, loot-based ARPG and that sort of thing. I guess there was a couple. I've been sitting here trying to remember the name, and I think it was just called Gauntlet.
Yeah, Gauntlet is a thing. Yeah, they made a remake of that, by the way.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I haven't played it, and that was more just kind of jump in, party, co-op, hack and slash. It was loot based as well, and we, I think me and my friends played a bunch of that on Nintendo 64. I think was the version that we played a lot of. I would just always go around to my friend's place, and we'd just play that as well as like Pokemon Stadium and other fun things. But that was, a fun small little thing into it. But the first one that I ever played, like single player by myself, was a game called Lionheart. Lionheart Legacy of the Crusade. Yeah, it was a PC game, and it was, I think it was made by, hang on, now I can't even remember the developer. It's a developer we all know. I'll have to Google it. Anyway, it was a really fun ARPG to kind of remember back on. It probably is like super clunky if I went back and played it now
I just looked it up.
like that, but yeah,
okay. It's by Black Isle Studios, of course. Yeah,
Black Isle, yeah. And that was really, really, really fun. I was pretty young when I was playing that, and so it was pretty difficult for me. I don't know if the difficulty holds up or anything like that, or whether I was just a stupid kid. But it gave me that sense of wonder. And actually, I was talking on stream yesterday about this, just about memories in general and nostalgia in general, on how it's usually played up in our minds more than it actually was. Anyway, I hold really, really good memories about that game in my head. And then I don't think I played anything for quite a while until Path of Exile. And it was end of 2013, start of 2014. No, start of 2013. Oh, I can't remember. Anyway, 2013, 2014, I first played the game with some friends again, and I jumped straight into it and played a witch zombie character, I think. And I was cruising through the game. I was like, I was smashing everything with these zombies, it was great. I got to Act 3 and kept dying to the discharge flicker strike, whatever they're called.
They were pretty brutal back then, to be honest.
What is going on? Every time I walk into the sewers, these things jump on me and insta-shot me. And then a friend introduced me to resistances.
That's a good concept.
You know what? Yeah. You know what? Those things, they do lightning damage. And just press C for the moment. I press C, open up my character selection screen. I'm like, I just see a bunch of numbers. What's going on here? See that one that says lightning resistance? And see where it probably says 0%? Yeah, I see that. You need to make that higher. And I'm like, that's probably, that would make sense. So pretty quickly, I got introduced to resistances and defenses. And, I probably should have known that beforehand. But it was good to have kind of an outside source tell me like, hey, this is where you're going wrong. I was pretty lucky with that, to have a few friends that had already played the game. But I know that a lot of people, especially more recently with Path of Exile just getting bigger and everything like that, they're probably, and being a free-to-play game, jumping into the game, not really, having any knowledge about it or anything like that. So it can make it a little bit more difficult to have certain realizations like that. But yeah, that was my first experience. I really enjoyed it, but I don't think I got past Act 3 for another, 6 months, playing on and off, just, with my friends randomly.
So you have people who have a bit more experience to guide you a little bit through your first steps. That does help a lot, I think.
It really does, yeah. And from that point, when we started playing a lot more, because me and my friends were just playing every now and then, just on standard. When we started playing a lot more and started looking at leagues, that was able to really fast track me, which was pretty good. But I was gonna say something. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. Back then as well, that was Act 3 in the normal difficulty as well, because when I started playing, there was only 3 acts, and you had to do them 3. It was 3 times when I started
3
playing.
times,
I think. Yeah.
When Act 3 was out, there were only 3 difficulties. I think there used to be 4 at some point.
Yeah, with Act 2, right?
Yeah, and
When it was
like
just
there was
Act 1 and 2.
normal, cruel, ruthless, and merciless.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it was. I don't remember much more than that. There's kind of a blank part in my memory in Path of Exile where I remember dying in Act 3 on my zombie character over and over. I then remember trying hardcore for the first time and dying to strongboxes about 5 times in Act 1. And then I remember playing Breach League, and I don't know what happened in between that.
That's where the learning happened.
Yeah. Oh, Breach League was
the brutal
where
learning experience that your
everything...
brain just blocked out as a traumatizing experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah,
crazy,
but
yeah.
I guess that does touch on one thing, about having either, friends. If you've got friends that have already played the game and you're getting into the game, then that's awesome. But you can't rely on that, obviously. But having some sort of like community support, or trying to reach out to players who do know more about the game. Well, I can say, at least for both our communities, we tend to want to be able to help people learn the game more and everything like that. That's one of the main reasons I stream, is to help new players into the game, because oh my goodness, Path of Exile is too much. It's too much to learn.
I think we talked about that before. I think we had that on the Q&A with Octavian, where the question was if we would like discover PoE now. Do we think we would get into it, and like how we would get into it? And I said I probably don't think I would, because it's just too much to learn at this point. Like back when we started, there were like so much fewer league mechanics, game mechanics, items. Crafting was simpler. There were no influences, not 500 endgame bosses. So much. Like now there's so much to discover, but there's also like way too much to overwhelm you and way too much to learn. But honestly, I thought about that a bit more, and I think I probably still would get into the game, because when I like approach a game from scratch, I usually don't really care about what is all out there, because as you said, like I usually focus on like few things, the things I know and I can see, and don't worry about like all the rest looming on the horizon. That's usually how I approach games, which helps me not kind of like worry about too much how much time it would cost. So I think like in retrospect, and having thought about this like another 2 weeks, I think I would still get into PoE, but it would take me forever to catch up.
Yeah, it's really hard to kind of like separate myself from Path of Exile now, because it's what I do for a career now. But I think I would still have to say, because I think I said back then as well when we were talking with Octavian, I think I said I probably wouldn't get into it, or wouldn't be able to. And I think for me that stays the same. It's very daunting, and my drive for learning new games has really gone down over the years. And I don't know whether that's just, less time, in, just lots of IRL things going on and that sort of thing as well. And I probably would have more IRL things going on specific to my life if I didn't choose this, like I'm kind of just like, would I actually be able to give myself the time for it? And would I want to invest the time into it? Answer still is probably no. So then trying to go like, well, if I wouldn't play the game, why do you want to play the game, right?
It's a bit tricky, but yes, as I said, I think I still would, because like if I stumbled across the game, just like opening the passive tree and all that kind of stuff would probably still draw me in as it did back then.
Yeah.
But way slower, because back then I had way more time, right? I was like just starting out university and like no family, no kids, obviously. So everything was like I had a lot more time with everything. So that made things a bit easier.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, look, I've always enjoyed things in games that are overly complex. So yeah, if I was to open the passive tree again, would that open it again for the first time? Would that intrigue me and make me want to learn more, or would that put me off? No, it would still intrigue me and make me go, wow, there's a lot you can do with this.
Yeah.
But then I think I would get overwhelmed with like, but I've got all of this other stuff to do, or this seems like it's going to take so much time, right? That also comes back to what you were saying of just like entering the game and not caring about anything else, or trying not to care about all these other kind of mechanics or anything like that, and just playing the game, just trying to play the game, I think is a great first approach.
I think that's my main tip for anyone who feels overwhelmed when you get into PoE, or ever, like even in endgame. You can maybe you get your first time you get to like maps, maybe it's the first time you get into like red maps, and at some point you're like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. There's so much I have to do, like sextons and juicing and like scarabs and master missions, and how do I handle all this? Just go one at a time. Just, I don't know, one league, pick like one mechanic. Like I had to, for example, I skipped Betrayal. I did play Standard back then because I didn't have much time. So I didn't play Betrayal League, and when it went core, I decided to not look at a guide and just figure it out myself, because I thought that would be fun. And it took me a whole league to even understand how that works. And now I know how Betrayal works.
I still don't know how Betrayal works.
Yeah, I know. I think a lot of people, even those who played Betrayal League, maybe don't know how Betrayal works. And that's just because I just took it one at a time. I just like clicked on things and I tried to figure out like, hey, when I kill this guy, what happens? Okay, he ranks up, and then okay, if I like the first person you always click on always has like the execute option, the last person never has it, and then you always get like that's how you can trigger certain bargains, and then the red lines and the green lines you can make more people show. You can kind of figure it out, but obviously watching a guide would be probably have gotten me there in like half an hour or so.
Yep.
Watch like a smart video, but there's something cool. Like if you learn something by yourself and figure it out by yourself, one thing you will never forget it. That's usually what happens for me. If I actually dig into a problem myself, it stays in my head forever, because I have to actually like make these like connections in myself in my brain somehow. I don't know. And it also can be fun, but yeah, if you don't, I would say if you don't have fun figuring stuff out yourself, just don't do it, and either skip the content. You don't, as you said, don't really engage too much with Betrayal, and you're still doing fine in the game, I would say. So.
Oh yeah. See, that's another thing. Like, I still find myself like I'm definitely over 10,000 hours in the game now. I think across my whole time of playing it, which is a lot.
Yep.
And there's that whole saying of like, you need to spend 10,000 hours on something to become a, in quotation marks, master of it, right? Or whatever that is. 10,000 hours is a good kind of time frame. With Path of Exile, I think it's more like 100,000 hours.
It probably also depends on your approach to the thing.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah. Of course, it depends on your approach to learning, your approach, your discipline with that learning, all that kind of stuff as well. But like, the reason I still really enjoy the game is because I am still just focusing, even day to day on like, hey, I'm still just going to forget about that mechanic because I don't want to invest my mental energy into that. I'm going to either do what I already know and love about this game, or I might dabble a little bit in that. Maybe my brain's ready to learn a little bit about that. And that's the other thing as well, how I enjoy the game, is trying not to get stressed about the things that you don't know about the game, and trying to focus on those things that you do find fun, because hey, we're playing a game. Games, they are supposed to be fun. I think most of the time, right?
Yeah, I think that's like, I would say most people would say they play games for fun.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because it's a bit of a meme, right? Like having fun in PoE, what? Because it is, you can actually read it's a meme for a reason. You can actually stress out about PoE a lot, and it can feel like work grinding those items. So I would say I can see like how people stress out about the game.
Yeah,
I mean, people stress out about all kinds of stuff, but yeah, I think a lot of that comes from like over analyzing stuff.
Yeah.
This whole like paralysis by analysis type of situation where you basically try to understand something before you like go in and like waste your time or like do it the wrong way. I think a lot of people are also just afraid to like do Betrayal wrong, and mess it up or
Yeah.
something like this. And
Yeah.
also other mechanics as well, like crafting. Oh, I don't want to waste my currency.
Yeah.
And so they never use it. Like, how often have you, like, you had that probably as well, but I think a lot of people can probably relate to this. You end your league with a full stash up of essences, another full stash up of scarabs you never used, 100 of each sextant, and you never use them because you're like, I was still waiting for the right moment to use my sextant. I had that with Final Fantasy a lot, where you have like the final elixir, which is like the ultimate healing item, heals the whole party full. I never used them because I was waiting for the right moment, so I don't waste them on like a normal
Oh yeah.
battle.
I
And
think that's just a thing in games, really. Like,
yeah,
I think that's a pretty universal thing. I'm definitely in Path of Exile though. I'm the epitome of the inefficient gamer. I always don't use. I hardly ever chisel maps. I hardly ever use scarab
even chisels.
sextants.
Okay,
No, seriously.
didn't know
Like
the extent of this.
yeah, no, I'm very inefficient, and you know I still do well in the game because I don't know. I just don't want to spend that extra 1 second every map to chisel it or chisel a bunch. I don't know. I'm just lazy, I guess. But I figured out that that's how I enjoy the game, is just not doing that stuff. I don't find it enjoyable, really. Maybe that would change if I did a lot of it or anything like that, right? But yeah, it's a good point. That kind of sitting on things, sitting on mechanics or sitting on items because you're not sure when to use it.
Yeah. And I think that's like, the funny thing is like not using them. There's like no more wasting of like, if you use an essence on an item and it just turns out to be like the complete wrong decision and it just makes a crap item every time, it's still better than just having it lying around, because at least you learn that it's a bad decision. That's like the worst outcome, basically. Worst outcome, you learned you did it wrong. Best outcome, you did something right and something cool happens. Woo! That's like really all there is.
Yeah. Another constant across learning in general as well is, you know, the very big cliche, don't be afraid to make mistakes, but like that's ever present in Path of Exile. The times I've learned the most, especially about crafting, if we're even just talking about crafting in general in Path of Exile, the places I've learned the most is making big crafting mistakes and, you know, wrecking an item or making something completely different to what I thought I was going to be making, or completely forgetting about, you know, certain affixes that could roll on items, you know, all this kind of stuff.
Trying to craft like a caster staff on a war staff and stuff like this. Might have happened to me before.
Oh yeah, that might have happened to me this league.
Nice.
You know, like that exact thing.
Staff is a good base. Spell block is pretty cool. Like 5,000 alterations later. Huh? Why doesn't it roll +1 to spell?
And sometimes I'm kind of happy about my community and the community that I've built of you know, me wanting to teach people and, you know, bringing newer players into the game or people who don't play a lot and everything like that, and trying to teach them, right? At first, when I was making mistakes and everything like that on stream about what I was doing, I felt like really bad. I shouldn't have made that mistake. You know, I'm supposed to be teaching you guys. Like, this is all in my head. I'm supposed to be teaching people. Now I'm like, oh man, I really hope that I just make mistakes all the time, because people watching me make mistakes, they learn from that as well.
Yeah.
And I'm sure stream can attest. And it's also funny. I'm sure stream can attest. I make a lot of mistakes all the time. And I learn from that, and other people learn from that as well. And yeah, especially with crafting, right? Yeah, like I'm always not researching things properly or just winging it and all this kind of stuff, and it's fun.
I also like kind of like I have a very hands-on approach when it comes to learning PoE. Like I don't like to over theory craft stuff. Like for example, there are people like basically pre-make the whole build in PoB and like check like, okay, will the damage in the end like kind of be there and whatnot. I very rarely do that. I do that like sometimes when I have a build idea and I'm like 90% certain it's not gonna be there for damage, then I'll like do like an actual concept build where I try to prove myself wrong, basically, that damage can be there if I invest. Most of the time it's just not there then, because it's usually a really crappy build. But otherwise, I usually never like, I just like put like a tree together, maybe like look at some items, and that's basically all I do. Make the thread of hopes are nice for PoE. I like that because the radius is just hard to see. It's like, does this hit? Okay, let's ask PoE. But overall, I usually wing stuff, and I find that people sometimes like come into chat, like into the stream, also on the YouTube videos, seem a bit confused by that because they kind of like are not used to like these half-assed, I'm just winging it type of things. Like this build, this league, the Archmage build, I basically just was like, okay, Archmage cremation, how does that work? I guess I put Archmage on cremation, the rest I'm gonna figure it out on the way. And that's what's like when you type exclamation on build, it says I'm winging it, wait for PoP in 2 weeks or something like this. And people find that weird, but I think that's my favorite approach to things. But I don't know how well that I can recommend that for people. I think if you're okay with failing really hard a few times, then it's good. But if you really dislike like hitting a dead end, then it's probably not for you. Because for me, it's just like, if I fail, I'm just gonna redo the failure and try again.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Like, and that's it is a good point. Like, I don't know. I do that sometimes, and then sometimes I do POB Warrior as well, and all of that kind of stuff. And I don't know how much I could recommend, one or the other really, because it is. I think that's a very personal thing in Path of Exile is, how you enjoy the game, and also, how much knowledge you have in the game to theory craft something in Path of Building. But it did bring up a question as you're mentioning Path of Building there. It's a little bit of a tangent, but it very much fits with what we're talking about. How do you feel overall about how much people use Path of Building, as an add-on to Path of Exile, or kind of now as a necessity, really, as people think
the second game next to Path of Exile?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Maybe Path of Building is really amazing, and I think that by how good, especially the community folk, it is now, I would say that I think that it is justified to rely a lot on it because it can actually deliver a lot of what people think. Of course, there are people who just like abuse it or don't like they Path of Building everything and never really look at how it actually plays in the game. Because your DPS number is like, I don't know, like 30% higher, my build budget might just either be more survivable because survivability doesn't really work in PoB, and I love making really tanky builds. And the other thing is that maybe the smoothness of gameplay is not there. That's something you can't see in PoB. And I think people sometimes tend to forget about the limitations that Path of Building does have, which is it can't show you the feel of the build, it can't fully show you the tankiness, it can't actually show you like somewhat how tanky it will be if you like know how to read the EHP values and whatnot. But I think, like that's a good example is that someone was asking me about like slam builds because I play a lot of melee, and he was like asking me, hey, why don't you just get a Marui Urki? Hey, in PoB that would be like, I don't know, 30-40% more damage than your current weapon, right? A Marui Urki was like 20C, and a 5-link Marui Urki is a 6-link, so it's like everyone's like, hey, just try that. That thing has like so low attack speed, I would just die running up to packs. Path of Building won't tell you that, but playing a game with actual monsters hitting your face is different than calculating DPS numbers. So I think there are limitations, but I don't think that having PoB is bad. I used to feel, I don't know how you feel about the whole thing, because like if you asked such a question, you probably thought about that a lot as well. Because I can see like a game being solved, quote unquote, is something I usually don't like as a game state. But yeah, how do you feel about the whole PoB situation?
That it is a really good point, because when I first think about it, when I first posed the question to myself, and kind of every time I think about the question, I'm like, what I think about PoE, and instantly I'm like, well, the magic's kind of lost in discovering new builds or discovering interesting ways to get damage out of certain abilities and everything like that, because I can kind of go into PoB and I can almost, with the knowledge I now have, I can kind of brute force a skill into trying to find the best way to, either get the damage out of that or get the survivability out of a certain unique or build or anything like that. Like, I can brute force it, right? But then, I take a step back from that as well, and I'm like, would I ever be able to really discover that in-game? It would probably take me 10 to 100 times the time to be able to level a character up, get all of that gear, and test it out myself. Or I could, use my theoretical knowledge about the game in Path of Building and look at it and go like, hey, okay, that could kind of work. Or, oh no, that damage doesn't look very good, right? So it's always a, like, I wouldn't say necessary evil, because it's not an evil thing. It's definitely not. Path of Building is a
No,
great
Path of
thing.
Building is
I love
not.
it. It's not, like, but it's a necessary sacrifice, I guess, is another way to put it, to the magic or discovery of more of the game, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it allows us to
yeah.
discover new things, like higher end things, or like basically go to a new frontier of discovering new stuff.
Mm.
But at the sacrifice of like having automatically discovered everything before that without actually having to put in the work. Because
Yeah.
back in the day, if you would wanted to compare, let's say, like a chieftain build to a slayer build, you would have to level the slayer up and try it out, and level the
Hmm.
chieftain up and try it out and see how it compares. And just by
Yeah.
feeling and maybe some boss timing, gorge clear speed used to be a thing, by the way.
Gorge clear speed, yeah.
Time
Oh,
that.
rip gorge.
Uh, yeah, see how fast you can kill a boss. I mean, I
Mm.
usually don't really give like fully fledged out, perfectly configured, realistically configured whatever path of building selections on my builds. Usually, what I try to do, I show some like kills of guardians and conquerors in my video, and I feel that to me is a more realistic and more, I don't how do you say it, like more visual representation of how well the build does single target compared to it's, I don't know, 200 bazillion shaper DPS. I don't know, like
Yeah.
2 million shaper DPS doesn't tell me that much about how the build actually plays on the boss.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
it's a different
definitely.
if I toss one essence drain and 6 seconds long, I do 2 million DPS, or do I actually have to stand there and whack the boss? That's the difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's it is another good point. Like we did say that it ruins some of that kind of exploration of leveling up a new character, and you were mentioning difference between like Slayer and Chieftain, or Slayer or Berserker, or two different ascendancies. You still kind of have to do that even if you've got those fully fledged out POBs, because it's just numbers on a screen. It's just numbers and letters on a screen that, even to someone who knows almost everything about the game, you still can't really look at that and go, how does this actually feel in game? How
Yeah.
does my 14% leech and overleech feel compared to my 10,000 armor and 78% resistances? Like you do have to feel that in game. So it's still not, I think if we had something like a build tester in game, that would be a very different thing, and a much more contentious topic for me. Say like, I can, uh, you know, basically import my POB and test this build against this one test dummy or something like that. That'd be a whole different topic. But if we're just talking about theoretical numbers on a page, POB is I think for the most part just a really really good addition to the game, and
Yep.
it'd be a very different game without it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so as well. And I think, as I said, overall, it's really good to like help people discover stuff faster about their builds, about their characters. Also items that could be like you can go like through the unique list as well, try stuff on, see what happens. I think
Mm.
all that is really amazing. Also, that you can, if you have an item and you want to know how to finish a craft, for example, you can like copy paste the rare in there, multi-mod it in POB without spending the exalts. And
Mm.
without doing like insane spreadsheet calculations, it's just like look at the item. Okay, it's now like a 600 DPS sword. That's an upgrade to what I have. Let's go, or
Yeah.
not, and then keep it right. Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That,
It
that,
is very helpful, because there's especially, that's actually a really good point, especially about like DPS and all that kind of stuff on weapons. There's not a real accurate way to do that in game other than looking at the tooltip and switching weapons in and out. But then like that's it's broken for so many skills and so many
yeah,
weapon types and all this kind of stuff that you just cannot judge it. So like, yeah, POB is just amazing for that.
Yep.
Um,
That was actually something I was like low key hoping for when they hired
mm,
OpenRL, the PUB
yeah,
creator. I
mm,
was like low key hoping that they kind of like would maybe work a bit on the tooltip stuff, but that
yeah,
didn't
no,
happen. And the
yeah,
tooltips
no,
are still, for some skills they're actually pretty legit and pretty decent.
yes,
And for
yes,
some they are horrible. But then there's like so much going on with damage taken to enemies and situational buffs that you can't ever like have an accurate tooltip
yeah.
anyways, I think.
You
So
can never have an accurate tool. Yeah, yeah. I think that's just going to be a thing in ARPGs as well. I think from what I was hearing from my chat when I was playing Last Epoch, they only just introduced uh, DPS, like tooltip DPS in skills in
Yep.
like the last patch or something like that, and it's still not very accurate at all. But you can do the same thing. I can kind of take a weapon, and I was doing this on my build, taking a weapon, looking at my tooltip, equipping weapon. Did it go up? Nope. I'm gonna take that weapon off and put the other weapon on. And I think in last epoch, that's doing it that way is a bit more accurate. There's not as much going on behind the scenes for a lot of the
Yeah.
skills, but still, like, yeah.
But then last epoch still, there's like so many temporary buffs and skills and stuff that you have on the skill trees of the skills. Like, I'm just thinking about my Blade Dancer rogue that I played last, when there were no tooltips, by the way. And they have like so many situational buffs. Like when I hit an enemy, stuff stacks up, and then I have like these other like Shadow Shroud stacks and other Shroud stacks, and and when I hit like 4 times with this skill, I can do like a finishing move. It's like super crazy. That Blade Dance is pretty cool when it comes to that, but that makes tooltip calculation pretty, like, damage is pretty spiky on the build, basically.
Yeah.
What I used to do is like to actually test damage. I would equip a new sword, for example, or a new dagger, and then run a map or two, or like a echo, whatever they called, and just look at because it has floaty damage numbers. I just like look at what my damage is roughly like, and get just like estimate it myself. And then if it seemed higher, I keep it, and if it didn't seem higher, I just get switched back.
Yeah, totally.
I'm my own POB in that game.
Yeah, were there test dummies in the game as well when you were playing?
Yeah, test dummies exist. They like stand in the corner in like the city, and you could just like slap them. I kind of like felt that, but I preferred running the actual content because I felt that more representative to what I was doing.
Definitely, yeah. But that's I guess another tangent, but like having those tools to be able to more accurately just like test your builds. I don't know. I haven't thought much about a test dummy in Path of Exile or anything like that. I think people have been wanting it for a while, right? Something to.
I guess it would. Let's put it that way. I don't think it would do any harm.
Yeah, I don't think it would either. But
that's really it. What I'm wondering is like, how useful do you think are tools like Path of Building to a new player, like an actual new player?
Yeah. Again, it kind of falls under the same scope of it's really hard for me to get my head in that MySpace because I kind of know what Path of Exile is. I kind of know what Path of Building means and how it all works and everything like that as well. And so we're talking completely new person, then I would just say completely skip Path of Building until you've played the game for a while, and then you know more about the mechanics. I'd have a little bit of a look at it, have a look at Path of Buildings of new builds and everything like that. And I think when you're past the point of understanding the core concepts of the game, resistances, mitigation, all the different types of mitigation, all the different types of damage types, all the different types of resistances, I guess, are kind of like the 3 core things there. Then you could probably start looking at it and understand it, and that's helpful then. But I think it would definitely scare people off if it's just like, hey, so this is your first time playing this build, so just open this up in this and follow all of these things here, and whoa, wait a second. But that's coming just from my head, and I actually haven't talked to any very new people about that and how they've felt.
I think it's hard for us because we learned Path of Exile without Path of Building. It's hard to get a grasp. So I found it hard to judge as well. But what a lot of people have been doing, for example, Zizarin does that, and I think a lot of other new build creators are doing that as well, like all other new build guys, where they put like a Path of Building where you have like different trees for like different leveling sections, and the whole Path of Building has also like written guide in the Path of Building as well. That really basically you can have that up on it's like a second monitor while you're playing the game, and that basically guides you through the whole leveling process in the Path of Building while you're playing, and you can just click through it, which I think is a really cool thing if you are the type of person who wants to learn with a guide.
Definitely. Yeah, no, Zizarin and a few other content creators as well, but you did mention Zizarin. He does it really well. The Path of Buildings are very well laid out. All the gem selections. He's got all the gem selections for leveling, all of the leveling trees. In the notes section, there's a bunch of information that's pretty easy to follow. So and what he does as well is in the build guides, he opens them up and shows them and shows where all of these things are. Directs you to them. So for a new player, like it's pretty decent to be able to open up Path of Building for the first time. And if you're following along with what Sears is saying, or anyone else, you can then pretty much get an outline of how it works and what to click on, and you won't need to change anything or really look too much at the DPS or anything like that, but you can follow the tree, you can follow the gems. So if it's utilized correctly from a build creator's perspective, I think it's very helpful for new people. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think as well, but I would never that's not just how I learn games. I learn games by I love like trying out stuff. I like failing. I like trying again. And I usually try to have like somewhat of an approach. So my approach normally is another approach basically to how to engage with the whole there's too much stuff to learn type of deal, is that I try to, first of all, like as I said, like focus on one thing. Let's say I play a melee build, I try to learn everything about melee on that playthrough. But also when I'm like newer to a game or when there's like a lot to discover, I usually re-roll way more often to get like a broad knowledge base about the different types of builds that are there. That way I don't get like as deep knowledge. Let's say I play, I don't know, a melee build to level 65, 70. Then I play a spellcaster, like a fire spellcaster with Ignite to level 70. Then I play a minion build to 70 and so on and so on. Like all the archetypes that I find interesting. I don't, of course, have like super deep knowledge, but I get like a super broad overview about everything, and then I can like pick and choose what to go in depth in, and then focus more on that. But I think that usually has served me pretty well as a like super new. Whenever I approach any game, like a last epoch, I rolled like a sentinel, then I rolled a what's it called, the shaman guy, the primalist, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Then I rolled a sorcerer. I didn't like that. I rolled a 2. Witch, is it called witch? No, what's she called? The witch.
The witch. Let's just call it that. Yeah.
Yeah, I played like as a necromancer first, and then I played as a basically occultist. I don't know what it's called. I'm bad at the name.
I think one of them's Lich, maybe.
Lich. I think it's a Lich. I basically played poisoned righteous fire. There's like a righteous fire skill that poisons you and enemies around you.
Yeah.
And you play it like RF with like regeneration and poison resistance, and then you just play it like that. And then I played rogue when it came out and tried the melee rogue. And yeah, that's just how I approach it. I just like re-roll frequently to get an overview, and once I got like some concepts, I can try to put together stuff myself and figure out stuff from there.
Yeah, definitely.
That can work. But there's also the people who just main a skill, right?
Yep.
I played melee for 5 years.
A few regulars in chat that just play one skill and one skill only. And hey, that's viable, and you'll learn a lot about that skill and also a lot about the game doing that, because you're learning so much about that one skill. You're not focusing all your time on learning everything about builds in the game. You can focus on the mechanics of the game, or the league mechanics, or anything like that, really.
You're just getting better with leveling and stuff as well, right? Like if you have played a build like the past, I don't know, 5 leagues, you probably level pretty fast with your leveling strategy. You probably have that down. You know which skill gems to pick, like without even having to look at anything. So that definitely does help as well if you just want to get better personally, like hone your skill at the game.
Yeah.
Just sucks if it gets nerfed to the ground, I guess. That's like I say. Then you're kind of like in trouble.
Yeah, you are a bit in trouble. There's been cases as well where I've seen people leave the game because their skill got nerfed, and so that's a risk. But yeah, it goes back to what we were saying as well, of like selecting what you want to learn, or selecting the types of stuff that you want to play, because selecting everything is just here's an analogy, right? A loot filter in Path of Exile, right? You don't have a loot filter, you see everything, and it's very confusing, right? So, how about a loot filter for our Path of Exile experience? Try and treat Path of Exile as your own personal loot filter, and try to just focus and highlight on things that just you want to experience. Okay, so this league or something like that, I'm gonna highlight Betrayal and Delve on my Path of Exile mind loot filter. I'm just gonna focus on these, it's a good way of focusing your time and energy into the game. Or I'm just gonna focus on this archetype of build. I'm just gonna focus on minions because I really enjoy minions. I've realized, I like playing Path of Exile because I like the minion mechanic. You don't have to play other builds. You don't have to feel like, oh, I played too much minions. You know, you play too much minions probably because you like it. Maybe you should play some more minions. You know, only try different stuff if you want to try different stuff, right? And that's the kind of, yeah. It's what choice does in this game is it really debilitates you. It really cripples you at times if you let it cripple you.
Yeah.
So really just trying to focus in is a good thing. Yeah.
And also not worry about like how fast you're progressing overall. Like, of course, if you want to be like competitive, get into racing, then look into that type of content and like watch all the guides and whatnot. But if you're having fun with what you're currently doing and you're enjoying your experience, you can keep doing that and like just look at guides when you hit a wall that annoys you. Figure out how you overcome that. That's normally what I try to do. I also try to go into like lots of stuff blind. Like the Maven fight, for example, I wanted to learn that. And that was definitely less successful. If I think I've had watched the video, I probably would have done my first fight successfully and not just the second one. But it was interesting to just like see the fight with like completely fresh, like a fresh start, a fresh view. Yeah. And that's been the case. I've been trying to do that for like all the recent content since Uber Elder. Basically, I went into Uber Elder not blind, and I regretted that. And then I went in blind into everything after that, basically.
Yeah. My plan was to go into Maven blind, but then I got caught up in the hype of when Darky reached.
Yeah.
When he was about to fight Maven, and people notified me in chat, he's like, he's about to. I'm like, do I want to experience Maven myself, or do I want to experience this kind of like world first? Well, I don't. Yeah, it was world first hardcore.
SSF hardcore world first. Yeah.
SSF hardcore. Yeah. Do I want to witness this for the race? I think I do. So I chose that, and it was very entertaining to watch that. Like, I don't think I regret it because I chose that, but like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like, trying to experience things for yourself is very important in the game.
Yeah, sometimes people are a bit weird about these things. Like, have you ever gotten these questions where someone comes to you like, do you think this support gem or that support gem is better for my skill? And my answer is usually like, have you tried them both out?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's and people are like, oh yeah, maybe I should do that. And sometimes people just like are so like stuck up in the like theory crafting thing that they just don't see the obvious solution anymore.
Yeah.
Which I find kind of like, I don't like blame people for that or like laugh about them, but it's like hilarious how I've sometimes gotten to that myself where I try to solve a problem from like PoE theoretically, like super into it, and like, wait, I could just like boot up the game, take a standard character and see what it does. Oh yeah, it works. Cool. And people are like that with their own characters as well. We're like, do you think volley or GMP is better for Fireball? And I'm like, try it out, see what you like better, and go with that. That's mainly like.
I've learnt the most about build mechanics by opening up standard, getting an absolutely scuffed character, redoing the tree in 3 minutes, equipping some stuff on the character, the core concepts of a build or an idea that I had, and just testing it out. You know, that might be a little bit more difficult for people who are newer to the game and might not have leveled characters in standard or something like that, so I understand that. But like, it's just another sentiment towards the idea of just try it out, just test it, right? The big question for me that I always get, I think multiple times a stream at the moment, is, hey Badger, do you what's the best passives to select on the Uncharted region of the Atlas, you know, the Middle Atlas, or you know, what's the best passives to select in this area of the tree? And my answer is always the same. It's like, whatever you look at and think is the most interesting, especially like, you know, obviously some people would say it's a cop-out answer, you know, I'm not talking about my own personal preferences or anything like that, but I don't want to do that, right? But especially for the Atlas stuff as well, it's all really fun and really cool. I think most of the nodes are pretty interesting, and if it looks interesting to you, then just pick it and run it, right? If you don't like it, you can respec it later if you drop some respec points or anything like that, right?
I think so as well. It's like I've been like trying recently, like the past few weeks, I've been doing like Legion farming in that region and Alpha farming in another region, Beast farming is up next, I think, and then Breach farming. and just trying these things out so I can give people a bit of a an idea when they ask this very, very common question currently. I can give people a rough idea of like, okay, I tried farming this and that region, I like that, or like I got this many emblems and whatnot, right? That type of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I try to give a similar answer, but I also give like some things that I felt like when I tried something out, I'm like, okay, yeah, this thing didn't like fulfill my expectations. For example, the invasion boss drops a valuable item. For me, I tried that for like, I don't know, like 30, 40 maps. Mostly gotten silver coins, 5 links, a few fusings and whatnot. I was like, they can probably drop good stuff, but overall didn't seem very interesting to me personally. I like not what I wanted out of this. And there are other things like I don't really think Abyss is all that cool, so I don't spec into that. I'm sure some of the nodes are pretty good, but
yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And even, well, I guess that's an interesting point as well. Like, even though I always want to teach people about the game, and I want to get people knowledgeable about the game, sometimes I don't want to share things about what I think is better or worse, categorically about the game, because I kind of want people to try that for themselves, because as you said a lot earlier ago, if you test it for yourself or you play it for yourself or experiencing it for yourself, you remember it a lot better, right?
That's true.
And so even with the Atlas nodes, like even if there are, for most situations, clear better options, better, whatever better means for you, in quotation marks, like
depends on your goals, right? What better means. Like if someone,
exactly.
let's say someone asks you, hey, what's the best option to choose in like this region? And so you're like, oh yeah, you should definitely take, I don't know, the Harbingers and Valdos for, I don't know, for the Ancient Orbs. So you tell them to take like Delirium for the Cluster Jewels and whatnot. But maybe that's not what they're after. Maybe they were just, their elite goal is to level to 98 for the first time ever. They actually they were looking for the XP option. You didn't even recognize that, hey, probably taking Beyond would have been better for your XP.
Yeah, and that's it. Another thing that I sometimes ask as well when people ask the question, like, hey, what's the best thing? I'm like, well, what are you trying to achieve? I can maybe give you information if you tell me what your goal is in PoE. Like, do you want to level up fast? Do you want to make it to currency? Are you trying to farm a specific item, or are you in SSF? Are you in trade? Are you in hardcore? All these kind of things. Like, I might be able to help you then, but yeah, that's it. Oh, that opens up another can of worms in my head. Learning a lot about Path of Exile was also dependent on the types of questions you ask and how specific you ask them as well to other people who know about the game, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I can really help you a lot with Path of Exile if you ask good questions. But then what is a good question? Like trying to frame things in a more specific question rather than, hey, what's the best build this meta, or this kind of stuff is it's very difficult for me to help you, or a content creator, or a friend, or anyone to help with very vague questions. Trying to be more specific is pretty important.
But what you can in turn learn, I think, is that as someone who does the guides, for example, or like streams and tries to help people out, is if someone comes in with like a very vague question, get them to like specify by asking yourself like questions back, right? Asking, like, I had someone come in like oh, I'm looking for a good build to play, and like what builds? I just usually ask what builds they have enjoyed in the past and what builds they tried so far, because normally when they come asking these questions, they tried like 1, 2, 3 builds and really didn't like them, and now they're like, kind of like desperate for like a reroll that feels good. And I usually ask, like, what builds did you try that you didn't like, and what didn't you like about them? And then they'll be like, oh, I tried Toxic Rain Pathfinder, that was like too squishy, and I just wasn't picking up without gear. I tried X and Y build, that was too clunky, too slow. And then I have like a range. Okay, it has to be like less clunky than this, has to be tankier than that, and maybe clear better than X and Y. And then I kind of like, okay, that only leaves you with this and that. And then he's like, oh, I don't like damage over time. Okay, that rules up 90% of the good builds currently, so you play this. But no, that kind of like that's usually what I try to do. Like get there roughly where they are on the clear speed versus tankiness versus bossing damage type of triangle scale. And then see what types of builds they like and what items they know about and understand.
I think that's all terrible. I just always recommend Enki's Arc Witch.
I mean, that is a pretty good approach overall. But then people are like, I'm allergic to lightning though, and I'm like, okay, damn it.
Yeah, well, this isn't the game for you. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah. No.
it's Enki's rolling magma then.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah, that's a very good point. If I can be serious, yes. We can very much as content creators, and I very much try to do that as well. Like ask questions back. You know, if someone's got a vague question for me, I'll try and delve into that question, and I'll try and pick apart the question so I can give you more helpful information. Yeah, getting to specificity of your questions is pretty important. Yeah. But yeah.
I think that's pretty
Yeah.
good overall.
I
Like, I think
yeah.
there are some parts we didn't really cover, but that's like some parts I can't really cover. Maybe we do that in the next episodes. I think economy as an FF player, I'm kind of out of that for a while, but there's a lot to learn about that.
Yeah, and I think going forward as well, we do want to. Well, we're still going to have fun episodes and just like talk about random stuff as well, and talk about new leagues when they come out. But especially from this point until probably the next league, we're going to try and focus more on the learning aspect of Path of Exile. And try and bring on people who are very, very knowledgeable in certain areas, like we've done in the past with certain things, but focus more on that kind of learning aspect. So, you know, getting people in who really focus going hard on trade, or, you know, hardcore, you know, defenses, all this kind of stuff. Like we do want to talk more about that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you guys, you know, if you're listening now, if you're watching live or anything like that, if you've got ideas or recommendations, or what you want to see from, what you want to learn more about in Path of Exile and hear from some experts of their fields, I guess, let us know. Let us know in the comments of YouTube. Let us know live on stream at Yoji's channel, my channel. Where else? Just anywhere. Just DM
YouTube
us
is where
on
I see it
Twitter
the most.
late
You can
at night.
tweet Arena at us. Our Twitter handles are usually below as well. That we will see.
Yeah. Crafting's a big one. Neame just put in the live chat. Crafting is a really big one that I think we want to do an episode on, but get right. You know, we want to really find first of all someone who there's a lot of people out there that really know a lot about crafting, but also frame it in a way that is understandable, because by golly is crafting not understandable in this game.
Yes, crafting is a huge thing. The thing about crafting, like me with crafting, is I think people sometimes assume I don't really know much about crafting because I don't craft. I actually really know a lot about crafting. I just don't like it, so I try to avoid it for the most part.
Yeah, I actually, before this episode, I was talking to Yoji. I was like, oh, maybe we could do an episode about crafting. Yoji's like, nah, I hate crafting.
I just don't like to do it. I think it's a good way to get gear, and I'm playing SF, so of course I craft my gear a lot, especially with harvest and all that type of stuff. But I'm not passionate about crafting. I do it because I need to do it to get gear. But I'm mostly about, like, I don't know, theory crafting. I like actually playing the game, killing mobs, doing bosses. The crafting is kind of like a means to an end for me, but it's a fun thing, and there's a lot to understand, from like item levels to modifiers to influences to bazillion types of ways to modify an item. There we have from betrayal to whatnot.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, so that's definitely a topic. We want to do crafting at some point. Maybe it will be more specific, as you're saying there, like specific parts about crafting for episodes, because covering crafting in an episode is a bad idea. Crafting's definitely on the agenda, but we want to get it right. So
that's definitely one that needs more preparation than just like winging it.
Yeah. But in the meantime, you can expect some other stuff. Hopefully, if we can get some more guests on. The next couple of weeks are actually probably going to be pretty difficult to get a lot of people on, because there are a lot of private leagues happening.
Yeah,
and a lot of people will be pretty busy. Yeah, it's getting into the event time.
I think about like who to get for crafting as well. There are like quite a few good options.
Definitely. Yeah.
So maybe next week will be like next podcast will be a bit more of a discussion type one again before we can actually do that. But yeah, the crafting wise, I'm thinking like Gazi crafts a lot, Ballard does craft a lot, MB Extreme crafts a crap ton as well, MP does craft a lot, he knows a lot. That's like so many people.
There are a lot of people that we can get on for that. So yeah, if you guys have, you know, specific recommendations of people that you want to see, comment on the video, or just let us know at any point, and we'll take that into consideration. We'll reach out to some people. But yeah, ending up this episode, hopefully you gained some sort of knowledge from what we were talking about. You know, I know it was a bit of a ramble episode, but
it was very philosophical, I think.
Yeah, I think it was very philosophical, and we got across enough. I think, hopefully.
Hopefully, maybe.
So let us know if
it's for you guys to decide if we got across enough.
If you got some food for thought, or whether we were just saying stuff that everyone says all the time, let us know. Let us know. But yeah, until the next episode, which will be in 2 weeks' time. Yoji, what have you got going on?
Deciding on what I'll have going on is basically what I have going on. I'll finish up my map farming, as I said. I still got breach farming in. I think it's Lex Proxima going up for the breach stones, because I still haven't found the what's called hidden invitation. So I'm gonna do some breach lords till I get the hidden invitation, and I still got beast farming in Turn's End with the uncommon beasts. I want to see what I get from that. I got that still up, and I want to do quite a bit of heisting actually after that. So I got all of that coming up.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I want to see if I can get is it Divergent Berserk?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because I do have the Chainbreaker thingy, I do have a Shaft, I do have an Astral Projector, though that screams to me personally Pyroclast, Low Life, Mine, Berserk shenanigans. That would be a build.
That would be
an SSF build.
that would be your SSF Maven farming build right there, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna farm Maven because that fight's just annoying as hell. But
true. Yeah, you don't like the fight. All right, we won't talk about Maven. Okay.
But yeah, what are you up to? I mean, I know what you're up to. You're BPL.
Oh yeah, yes, BPL. Yes, the Badger Private League. So we're up to number 3. This is the 3rd installment, and we're over 1,000 applications now. Almost 1,200 applications, which is pretty crazy. That's a lot of
300 per team. That's a lot. That's big teams for 4 teams. Good thing you're making 4 teams this time.
Oh yeah, if we were making 2 teams, I don't know what we would do.
600 plus people teams.
I wouldn't be on this episode. I would be in bed crying right now. So I'm glad we made 4 teams.
Yep.
But yeah, it's looking really fun. We've got 4 different teams: Team Formed, Team Twisted, Team Feared, and Team Hidden. I always forget about Hidden.
Yeah, they're hidden. That's why you can't see them.
They're hidden, but yeah. Yeah, and if you don't know about it, look, Yoji, if you can include the video link, maybe, if you remember, to the YouTube video of the thingy in the description, because there's a lot to talk about. But a TLDW, too long didn't watch, or anything like that, team versus team, kind of faction based Path of Exile gameplay. You got sorted into a random massive team, and you work together as a team towards certain goals. Leveling up your team, killing bosses, farming unique boss sets, all that kind of stuff. And it's 1 week, it goes for 1 week. The competition starts at, what is it? Well, actually, the time that the podcast starts, so that's like 7 p.m. GMT, right? 7 p.m. BT?
Roughly. EU evening, Australia morning.
EU evening, Australia morning, Friday to Saturday. Yeah, exactly. I'll give that to you, right? It's going to be heaps of fun. There's still heaps of space. Applications close 12 hours before the event starts, so if you're interested, go and check it out. My plug is over, but now I'm going to start a different plug for other events that are happening that are not mine, because there's a really, really cool event happening also on that weekend, just for the weekend. Definitely go check out the Havoc Team Blast, which is another kind of team-based, smaller teams, but a team-based race that's happening in 4 different installments over 2 days. Well, it's kind of 2 installments in 6-hour increments. 6 hours of hardcore gaming. I think a 1 hour break, another 6 hours, and then the next day 6 hours, 1 hour break, 6 hours over the weekend. If you're not participating in that, watch it. Unless you're watching BPL, then maybe have 2 different screens, one on your phone.
Multi-Twitch is pretty good for that.
Yeah, multi-Twitch is great. Yeah. There's an awesome team behind it. Really, really great team of organizers, racers. It's going to be a, pardon the pun, blast to watch. I would definitely be playing in it if Thank you, Yoji. I appreciate that. I would definitely be playing in it if BPL wasn't on, but unfortunately, that's on. And I'm sure there's more events coming after that. I'm sure it's not announced yet, but I think it will be announced pretty soon. Gauntlet, I'm sure, is coming up.
Yeah, Deezer said something about a glove-based announcement on
some
Saturday.
sort of glove-based announcement.
Yeah, I think it might be some racing mids happening.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Equipping some sort of fast gloves, I guess, is what he's going to be doing. But yeah. So Gauntlet will be coming up. Look, this weekend is, I guess, officially when the community event side of Path of Exile will start to happen. So maybe the league is winding down for you, but even if you're not going to play, there's going to be a lot of content to watch in the next 4 weeks or so.
That's kind of like a really cool development, I think. That there's basically an event time now that community just decided, hey, this is now event time. Which is super nice.
It's really cool, and we're starting to me and a bunch of other organizers as well are starting to, well, they've already been doing, I'm very new to this scene of the community events and everything like that. I'm kind of jumping in. They've already been doing it, right? The whole community team, but really trying to like let each other know when certain events are going on so we can all plan it properly and, you know, everyone doesn't step on other people's toes. Unfortunately, the Havoc and my private league ended on this same weekend, which is, we're going to try and avoid that next time, but yeah. Should be good. Yeah, should be a lot of fun.
Nice.
And until that point, don't think I'm going to stream much today because I have a build guide to get out. But
pretty general
build guide. Yeah, a pretty general build guide.
Yes.
So we'll see that one soon. Hopefully in 24 hours that one will be up. And then it's league start practice, and then BPL league start for me. Really. Then we'll see where it goes from there.
What build you're playing?
I don't know yet.
What? Undecided.
I'm still undecided. Oh dear. But yeah, that's it from me. Yeah.
Yep. Seems good.
I guess we'll end it there. We will stick around. Will we, Yoji? Have you got a little bit of time for some questions?
Yeah, I got like a 10-15 minutes probably.
And we'll focus the questions on, I guess, you know, newer players to the game or people who, you know, want to learn things about the game. We'll answer some game-based learning questions if you've got any. So prepare your questions now. If you're watching live, we'll answer them. But the official episode for Inspired Learning is now ending. Dum dum. We hope you enjoyed your stay. Thank you so much for coming. And as always,
stay sane.
Exiles.
Exiles.